Time next for the business news with France 24's Charles Pellegrin. Charles, great to see you. You're starting out with something a bit different today, a look at the job market and specifically what are referred to as green skills. Tell us more.
So, Delano, green skills are defined as those that directly combat the effects of climate change. And as it turns out, a social and professional media platform LinkedIn has been tracking the evolution of these skills on the job market in their annual Green Skills Report. This is based off of the data of their more than 1 billion users around the world. Their latest report highlights one crucial problem, that demand for green skills is far outpacing supply for these skills, making it that much harder to reach the carbon-cutting commitments that governments have made at various COPs. Last year, demand grew 11.6%, while supply grew 5.6%. By 2030, 1 in 5 jobs will be left vacant for lack of qualified personnel, and that will be 1 out of 2 jobs by 2050 if things stay as they are. On the plus side, for those who have those skills, they will see a 54.6% higher hiring rate than others. Well, for more on this report, let's speak to LinkedIn's Vice President of Public Policy, Sue Duke, joining us from London. Thank you so much for speaking to France 24, Sue. Let's start right off. I've given a quick description of what a green skill is defined as, but could you please elaborate on that and tell us about the fastest growing green skill, which is a sustainable procurement? What does that actually mean?
Happy to. Green skills are skills that put economic activities on a more sustainable footing. Typically, they're skills that are either taking pollution out or conserving natural resources. And as you said, sustainable procurement is a great example of a green skill. That was the fastest growing green skill globally, as you said, this year. That's a skill that workers are using to ensure that the goods and services that they're providing are done as sustainably as possible, from where they're sourced to the full supply chain journey, right through to how they're distributed out into the market. And one of the reasons that's the fastest growing green skill this year is because, of course, that's a skill that's being used by a whole host of workers in green jobs, but it's also being used more and more by workers in more traditional roles, like construction workers, shop assistants, supply chain managers. We see workers in these traditional roles using these skills more and more to do their jobs in a more sustainable way. And that's exactly what's going to power this transition to net zero.
All right, so let's move on to the major question that comes out of this report, and that's been coming out of the report for a few years now. What can be done to fill that growing gap between supply and demand of green talent? How do we train more people in these green skills?
2 major challenges. 1 is raising awareness, and 2 is skilling. 4 out of 5 young workers are telling us, I would love to break into one of these green jobs, but I simply don't know where to start. And secondly, time and time again, we hear and we see out there that we just have not scaled up the training programs to the extent that we need to get the workers the skills that they want to get so that they can activate their role in this green transition. What we need is governments, the private sector, and workers coming together to ensure that we are putting in place these training programs so that we can take a targeted approach to making sure we're bridging this gap between the demand that continues to grow year in, year out, and that gap to supply that also continues to grow year on year.
Related to this question, there are 2 groups that you see as critical in boosting green skills, 2 underrepresented groups, and that's Gen Z and women, who only represent, I think, about 1/3 of all green jobs. Why is that?
Yeah, great example of why we need to take a targeted approach here. Those young workers, Gen Z, who are coming into the workplace now and will make up fully 1/3 of the workforce by 2030. Today, they only 1 in every 20 of them has a green skill. We've got to get that number right up. And what they're telling us is, I don't know about these green jobs. I don't know where to get green skills, and I don't know how to break into this. But if I'm presented with the opportunity, I am ready to go. I am willing to play my part. Same for women. As you say, for every 2 men who are green talent on our platform, we have only 1 woman. And we have got to get that number way up if we're going to bridge this gap. Women make up more than half of the global workforce. They're often the most impacted by the ravages of climate change. And we need to ensure both these young workers who are coming into the labour market now and women are in a spot where they can take advantage of these opportunities and really start driving us forward to net zero.
And very quickly, one last question. It's the big one right now. What impact will a Trump presidency have in this regard? He did attempt to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Agreement in his first term.
Every government around the world is invested in creating jobs and economic opportunities for its people. And we have seen very, very consistently in the US and around the world that this green space, that's where those jobs are coming, that's where those opportunities are opening up. In the US, despite the fact that it was quite a slow hiring year across the broader economy, just this year we saw a 10% year-on-year increase. So long term, the trend is really clear. Learning green skills opens up doors, opens up opportunities. And one of the ways that we know we can do this in the most efficient, targeted, effective way is taking a skills-based approach to hiring. That's where we focus on skills and potentials and less on degrees. We know that under the previous Trump administration, that was a key initiative. Skills-based hiring has continued to garner bipartisan support over the past 4 years, and we have every confidence that it will continue under the new administration. That's going to be the key to unlocking the skills and potential we need to get us to that 2050 target for net zero.
Sue Duke, you are the Vice President for Public Policy and Economic Graph at LinkedIn. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on France 24.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
That's it for this segment, Delana.
Thank you very much, Charles. Charles Pellegrant there with the business news. More news coming up. Stay with us.